Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is Posthuman Saga. So a while back, oh man, it's quite a while ago now actually, I'm thinking about it. I did a review of a game called Posthuman. I really like that game, and actually it has continued to make my culling cut, and it's still part of my collection, which is saying quite a bit, because I've been cutting my collection down to around 200 games, and it remains to be a game that my game group always continues to ask for, and we enjoy a great deal. Posthuman Saga is set in that same world, but it is a game that is totally different. I mean, yeah, thematically it's going to have the same kind of aspects, and it's definitely going to broach the same kind of wastelandish world of mutants and what have you. But this is its own monster, if you will. This is a game in which each person is going to be playing a survivor. This is not a cooperative game. Each person plays a survivor that has been sent on a mission from the people that they represent, and they need to succeed in this mission because they need to basically survive in this horrible post-apocalyptic world that they live in. Each person's mission will be different, and each person's section of the world will be different. It is a little weird, this game, because a lot of these types of games, you'll run into other players. You'll pass by them or whatever. Not in this game. Each person, think of it as this way. The world's huge, right? So each person's going to have their own, separate little, dimension, if you will, for lack of a better term, that they're going to explore and they're going to create as the game progresses. I'm going to have to show you how the game plays. There's lots of different mechanisms and things like that interweave between each other. Definitely there is going to be combat, because you're going to run into nefarious things as they are, as you find them on the wastelands. But there's also going to be wonderful adventure aspects. There's actually a narrative storybook that is going to be included with the game, that is going to instruct you to turn to certain paragraphs that you're going to read, and you're going to react to them in certain ways. You're going to try to defeat them and try to succeed at them. And this isn't just going to be blam blam blam, or beating things with baseball bats or whatever. You are going to have to use your characters' mind and their speed and their cleverness to succeed as well. Now you might be thinking, oh, there's combat, so it's like buckets of dice. No, I'll show you how the game is played, but the combat actually works off of a card deck that each person's going to have. And then you're going to exhaust cards out of that, and then you're going to have to replenish them later, so you keep up your options, if you will. You are going to level up your character, something that I've always enjoyed in games like this, but the best part about this game is the fact that you're creating your own story, and you're creating your own adventure as the game plays. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of nice that the other players can't mess with that adventure, technically, right? Because of the fact that you have your own world, your own sandbox that you're playing in. And sandbox is something I'll probably bring up in the conclusion as well, but that's what the goal, I think, of the creators here was. They were trying to create a sandbox game for each person to be able to play in. I think they did succeed on a lot of levels. So let me show you how the game is played. There's a ton of this, and it's going to be lengthy. I do apologize for that, but I wanted to give you a good idea of how the game is played without... it could have been super long, even longer than what I did. But I think you'll have a good grasp of how the game is played. So let's show you how to play Posthuman Saga, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Posthuman Saga, and this game has a lot going on, but it is one of those games that when you first try to play it, it seems like you can see there's all these piles of different cards, and you can see there's all this information up here, and tiles, and a player board, and you feel intimidated, right? Whenever there's a game like this, you feel kind of like, oh my gosh, there's what do I do? How do I figure this out? And whatever. But I'm here to tell you that once you get into playing the turns of the game, it is really straightforward, and it is really, really, just thematic, and it makes sense, and it just kind of flows very, very well. So what I'm going to do here is I have set up like a 4-player game, but I'm not going to like play every single player's turn or anything like that. This isn't going to be like a strict like gameplay, you know, this person does that, that person does that kind of thing. What I'm going to do is just basically kind of give you an overview of the rules and show you exactly what your options are and how you score points and what your goal as you play the game is going to be if you're going to be trying to win it. Now, I invite anyone that's watching this is to go to the Kickstarter page and you can download the rulebook, and it's an excellent rulebook. It's one of the best rulebooks I've actually read for a game that's this complex, and you can definitely peruse that while you're watching this video or afterwards or whatever, and it should give you a more in-depth look, because this is going to be, if I tried to go through every single bit, this rule section would be hideously long, and it's already, I know, going to be long. So anyway, all that being said, let's just talk about what you're looking in front of you. So this is the game board, as you can see. Each one of these little quadrants here are each person's little area that they're going to be exploring. It's their area that they're going to tell their story, as far as the journey that their character's going on, the adventure they're going on, the combats they're going to deal with, the trials and what have you. You're going to have a little bit of interaction with each other as this game progresses, but you don't ever go into somebody else's territory and go and attack them or anything like that. Each of you is going to be trying to basically complete your objectives more efficiently and quicker than the other people. And you're going to, and by doing so, you will score more points, and then at the end of the game, you will come out being the winner, and you'll have survived this this wasteland, if you will. Alright, so as I said, each one of these sections is just that. These tiles here in the middle, these are randomly taken off of the piles that are over here, along with these tokens as well, are randomly drawn out of a bag, and I'll show you the bag here in just a second. And those are placed, and at the beginning of each turn, you will do a what's known as an auction, if you will, of trying. Well, I shouldn't say every turn, but regardless, you'll be doing an auction to take one of these tiles and also take one of these tokens. You'll take the token that's associated with the tile with it. I'll explain why. The tiles themselves you'll use to create your wasteland, your world in this Posthuman Saga, and the little tokens here will be another way that you can create possibilities of getting victory points, or as they're called, reputation points in this game. Once again, getting a little bit ahead of myself and kind of telling you what's going on, but I haven't really told you exactly how that works, but I will in just a little bit. Over here, we have the turn tracker. As this goes along, this turn tracker, it will tell you certain things to do. Basically, the two big phases are, it might be tough to see, and I apologize for that because it's kind of far away, but there's a little binocular there, this little orange circle. And during those are the phases that you're going to be doing the auctioning of these tiles and trying to claim which ones you want. There's also these areas that have these little lightning bolts. And when that happens, you have an event and something that occurs and that you and the other players are going to have to deal with. You might notice that there's these cards right there. Those are the events. Now here's something cool, and I'm once again jumping forward here. You might have noticed these little tokens here, and these are called intel tokens. So on the back side of these, and each person's going to get 4 of these. I happen to be playing the scout character. I don't know, I just thought maybe a guy wearing a bandana with a beard looking cool. I don't know. I for some reason, I just feel some sort of kinship with this guy. But anyway, regardless. Each person, you get 4 of these tokens. You notice there's the little picture of that person that's on there right there. And then you're going to place those on those intel tokens. When you get to those spots, you're able to take those intel tokens and you're able to place them on any of these locations that are free, that don't already have one, and you can place them on these event spots. So when you hit those event spots, actually the player that placed that on there will get to do some cool things, and I'll talk about that when I talk about the events and how we handle those. Alright, Up over here on this side, the big band here, that's your reputation points. You want as many of those as you possibly can because those are going to earn you extra points. And way up there in the top left, and it might be tough to see, that is like your objective tracker. And you can't tell it from here, and once again I do apologize for that, but basically each player is going to have like basically a minor objective and a big objective. And then if they complete those, then they're going to have like a boss fight that they're going to be able to go after. And I'll explain each of those in a little bit. But the gray ones are for who scores. Basically, you want to be the first person to complete the first objective, and you want to be the first person to complete the second objective. And because the quicker you get them done, the more victory points you get. And then you just place, you have these little tokens with your little face on them, and you'll place them on that spot to show that you've earned those points. There's this to talk about and that. So let me talk about that real quick. These are the Recon bonuses. So what you're going to be doing as you play this game is, as you place these sites out on these tiles to create your wasteland world, if you will, what you're going to want to try to do to earn extra points is you're going to be trying to set up chains of markers that have like this. So if you had a chain that had a gear and this beaker, that would be worth 1 victory point. And you're placing these little tokens down, right? If you manage to do that, then you're going to get a victory point. And you'll notice that as you go further and further, if you can manage to get, this stands for a maul. So you have a maul, this gear, and this tire there. If you manage to get those in a chain, and this is sort of like an orthogonal chain, so like and they gotta be in the right order, you get 5 victory points. Then you collect those you collect the tokens after you complete it. So, theoretically, like, you could maybe have, like this one done, but you have another beaker, so you're not collecting them yet. You don't want to because you're trying to get that extra maul, if that makes sense, right? Because then you collect the tokens and you can only like score them obviously the one time. But that's another way you can score reputation points. And you draw one of these cards, and then so it's random each time what you have. All right, so now this is in the middle, and this probably looks very confusing. This is melee combat, and when I get to how combat works, the melee combat uses this structure basically to keep track of each person's abilities in that melee combat, and so it's instead of having a trying to do it in your head, you can set up tokens on here to show that. And once we get to melee combat, I'll explain how that works. Alright, so these obviously are the tiles that you're going to be using to replenish that. These 2 decks of cards are the different encounters. You're going to do level 1 encounters until you get done with your first mission objective, and then you're going to move on to the level 2 encounters. You will, after the 7th round, automatically go to level 2 encounters. So if you haven't completed your first mission, you're going to be kind of stuck behind the 8 ball at that point. Once you get to round 11, you have this mutation token that is going to go into the encounter resolution bag. Once again, I'm referencing something you haven't seen yet, but basically that's going to increase the chances of people getting mutations, which not necessarily would be a bad thing. Like, there's this mutation deck here, and these are called stable mutations. When you get your first mutation, you get a nice stable mutation. It might actually be something that'll be helpful. However, your second and third mutations are going to be these unstable ones, and those not so much. And if you can only have 3 mutations. If you get any more mutations after that, you're actually going to lose a point each time you get a mutation. So 1 mutation, pretty good. Falling mutations, probably not so good. Alright, so then we have these 3 different decks here. These are ranged weapons, these are melee weapons, and this is basically it's like a backpack. These are things that you are able to pick up as loot, so here's a repair kit, here's a DNA extractor. These are just different things that will give you different different actions and what have you. Like discard DNA extractor on a terrain tile with a lab green scavenger site, and on a lab, green scavenger site token on it is to score 1 victory point. You might notice this. Just keep that in mind. I'm going to be talking about the narrative thing here in a little bit, and that's one of the things I really like about this game is the different narration stuff that's going on. But like, here's a repair kit. During a camp action, place 1 durability token on an item, weapon, or equipment up to the item's maximum durability. So like you're repairing things. So these are, you know, different things that will increase you. Now I might as well just show you some weapons. So, ranged weapons are just like you probably can tell. Like, you know, ranged weapon, it gives you like the range here. It says, you know, it takes 1 ammo to do it. It tells you that like if you get 2 of these reactions, it's worth 1 damage. 3 of these is worth 2. And then you can burn a blue shooting boost to gain an additional, you know, target or whatever. So, you know, there's different of these things. You know, obviously, like some like here's the big like machine gun. This one would take 2, and then allow you to actually draw like more cards, which I'll explain once again when we get to combat. But like obviously, because it's a burst weapon, it's doing more. So, just these are different things that you can scavenge and discover if you explore the world. And let me just show you some melee weapons. So, melee weapons are going to have these right here. That is the durability of it. You place that many of those wooden cubes on it to show the durability. Each time you use it, you lose one of those. And once it gets down to 0 durability, you can't use it until you get it fixed. Remember that repair kit I showed you? So, and then, like, once again, like, this isn't going to make any sense to you right now until I actually talk about melee combat. And there's these like, I always thought this, like, it's obviously supposed to be an axe head, but for some reason I always, like, for me it looks like a megaphone, if you will. But anyway, and then damage tokens, that's maneuverability. Once again, things that might not make a lot of sense to you right now, but, you know, will, you know, very shortly. Alright, so that... Oh, and then one last thing. You can, through narrative encounters, get followers. And followers will follow with you, and obviously, and they will give you certain bonuses and what have you. They will stay with you until you, unless you get knocked out. If you get knocked out, which is a bad thing, obviously, but it does happen. And when... And of course, like some of them that says, when active, discard fanboy to ignore all damage from 1 shooting phase. You know, so... but anyway, so followers, just, you can grab them through narrative encounters, and obviously they can be helpful if you get them. Alright, so now on to your character. So each person, as I showed you, that I have the scout. The characters themselves have several different information. This is their initiative up here. This is their health, or I'm sorry, this is their health, this is their morale. It tells you what their stats are. Stats are going to be very important when it comes to narrative encounters. And then, so he has like 5 shooting, 2 of this melee, he has 2 strength, you know, and so on and so forth. You know, just kind of down the track there. It tells you that these are the 2 attribute boosts that he gets. He gets 2 blue shooting ones. He gets a combat knife and a Fleming hunting rifle to start with. He gets 2 food and 2 ammo, and I'm allowed to pick 2 abilities at the very beginning. Like I can pick as far as like from my like basically leveling up deck, if you will. So when you choose these, like, and I'll show you this from the you have, so it shows level 1, so you can pick like level 1 abilities. Some of these will be like, you know, for combat, so like, you know, snipe for a sniper, or a maiming hit for a sniper, things like that. Some of them will be for different actions, like a recon specialist. During a map action, you may draw 2 face-down train tiles and add a random scavenger site token instead of 1 face-up train tile and a scavenger site. So they're not always going to be combat, but this is the way that you're going to level up your character. You'll notice that some of these will just have an experience point total. You do gain experience points as you play the game for like defeating encounters and so forth. And then, like, you would, during the night phase, because there's like a day phase when you're going to be doing your actions, then there's going to be a night phase where you'll be able to spend your experience. After that, like some of the level 2 abilities, they will tell you that you need to have 2 of the preceding abilities to like of the same set, and then spend 5 experience points. So you can't just jump to one of the level 2 abilities. So you have to kind of build yourself up and head down a tree. Now, there's no way you're going to be able to learn everything when you're playing the game. So that's one of those things where, as you play the game in multiple different ways, like you can try to level up your characters in different ways and seeing what could possibly happen. Now I just want to show you some of the other, like, so you have like the cage fighter, you have the guard, and you have the scavenger. So you can see their different abilities and whatever. So it's each of these has their own strengths and weaknesses. I mean, the scavenger like gets to start with 3 of these things, but probably maybe doesn't have like the best stats, if you will. So each one will have a different way that they will play. I mean, like say like the guard here doesn't even start with a melee weapon or a ranged weapon, just has a hatchet. So I mean, they have their good parts and their bad parts, and it's one of those things where as you play the game, you will learn a style of play that fits you best. But I should mention that none of these characters are like better or worse than the other. It's just a different way to play the game and a different way to tell the story, if you will. All right, so each player will have their starting equipment. As I said, I have my rifle and my combat knife. My combat knife, has 2 durability. So I take these 2 cubes and I put those on there to show that I have that as durability. You might be able to notice that and you can't really see the cards. I do apologize for that. It's a pretty big game. It's going to take up a lot of table space for you. But at the bottom of this, you see there are 5 slots for different items. And the 5th slot is actually for a heavy item, and it's denoted by this little tiny bag there. You will get stuff that is considered to be heavy items, and you can only have 1 of those, and you can only have up to 5. So sometimes you'll be discarding stuff as you go. Each person will get 4 of these action cards to show that when you choose your action, as far as camp, forage, map, or explore, and I'll talk about each of those when we get more into how the turn works. As the game progresses, you will have situations happen where you may have to have like different things. So here is like a mutation where it's shrunken hippocampus. So that your map function, here I'll actually compare the 2 so you can kind of see those 2. Your map function will actually change from one card to the next. Here, let me go ahead. So map, you can take 2 of the binocular tokens, or replace the tiles face up on the terrain tiles on the board, then draw 1 face up tile and the scavenger token next to it, then place any number of tiles with up to 1 scavenger token on each. Here, it allows you to take only 1, then draw 1 face up tile, and then place any number. So, like, there's, you don't get this ability of replacing all the face-up terrain tiles anymore if you got that shrunken hippocampus as your mutation. So your action cards can change as the game progresses, which is, I think also part of the thing where I kind of enjoy how the story for each player is going to be altered and change as the game progresses and goes on. And I'm going to talk about that a lot probably in my final thoughts, but the story of this game is, I think, where it really shines for me. All right, and then, okay, so each person is going to have a combat deck. This combat deck, what will happen is that, and I'm getting ahead of combat, but you'll be choosing cards out of this combat deck for when you get into a combat, and then you will exhaust them. You will also be drawing random cards from this deck that won't be exhausted. So, like, you'll probably pick like a good card, like if you take like a critical hit, card if it's a battle you really want, but then you're gonna be drawing one randomly as well that might just be like a miss, like that. As the game progresses, your combat deck might change a little bit because of the fact that like you might take skills. They're gonna add these sniper cards to your hand, so you maybe hit or headshot, so you get to use them for like extra abilities, but also like you can get mutations like a hammer hand, or you can get slicer blades, things like that that are going to be changing things up, and like also like razor claws and seeker sights and things like that. So, and those will be added to your combat deck as well as the game progresses if you get mutations. All right, so the top part of your character card is going to just show you like each of the things you have. Has your objective tokens, which you will place on the board as you're able to. It'll have these safe area tokens that you will also get to place on the board. And safe areas are good because they're considered to be when you rest in them and camp in them, you get extra restorative abilities, and also you don't have to worry about food when you're in those spots. So important things. If you start with food or other information, it'll be in these locations. And I actually just realized that I start with 2 bullets, and I forgot to put those 2 bullets there. So I'm going to grab those, and you'll see those appear there with the magic of video editing. Alright, so now my scout has his bullets. That's always a good idea, because the scout is kind of a sniper guy, and you want him to have bullets. But regardless. So the way the game works is you will move the track forward, and then each person, depending upon the, like in this particular situation, the round is going to be one of these binocular rounds. So what happens is now we're going to kind of fight, if you will, or we're going to bid over who gets to pick first for these tiles, and also the scavenger tile token that's with them. Now, interesting thing is that if you can match when you place a tile down and you're able to match the token with the actual, like the tile, like so, like this, you can actually, you're going to get like rewarded for that. So it's always a good idea to be able to match those together. But anyway, but as you may have noticed, that not all of them are going to be matched up like that, so you're not going to have that bonus, if you will. But you are allowed to keep a hand of these tiles and these tokens, up to 4 total. Like, so you could have 3 tiles and 1 token, if you will. And, or you could have 4 tiles, or you could have 4 tokens and no tiles, or whatever. But you are able to have those in reserve, so you can put them onto the board later. And there's other ways to be able, through the mapping action, you can actually grab more tiles. So, but we'll talk about when we do that action. So when you bid, it's just a classic bid. Like you've probably played this in many other games, where each person will have a number of tokens in their hand. Everybody will put their hand out, and everybody reveals at the same time. Like the turn order will break ties if there happen to be ties between people that bid. But so depending upon who you bid, then you're going to be able to take a tile. Each person is going to start on this little arrow, and you're going to have to go to that location. So I'm just going to take this one and say, like, I got it. And so I'm just going to show you the tiles just so you can kind of see. All right, so this denotes what type of tile it is. It is a farmland tile, and it has this 3. Now that 3 is important because it's going to be one of those situations where it's going to determine whether or not we have a combat on that spot, or whether we have a narrative encounter. And then this means that there's a mall on there. So, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to put that right there, and I'm going to just put that because, and place it onto the board. By matching the token, I actually do get an experience points for that, like 1 experience point. And you can get multiples of that if, like, during a map action, you get to place a lot of tiles and you can match some tokens with those. So, just one of those cool little things. And I might as well just, like, move my little dude over here, like so. Now, after each person chooses that, you will replenish the tiles, if you will. I'm just going to replenish this one, so I'm going to put it on there like so. And then we do have to draw a random scavenger token out of a bag. Remember, this is a prototype, so I'm using the classic Crown Royal bag, and I'll draw one out, and I got one of these gears, and that actually matches with that one real well. So we'll just go ahead and place that like so right there. Now we have a tile, and like I said, I'm not going to do it for each and every person, just to try to make sure that I do make this as succinct as possible. But always remember that this spot right in front of your starting zone is always considered to be a safe zone. you don't have to worry about feeding yourself in that spot. All right, so now, oh, you know what? I actually just totally remembered. I forgot to tell you about your mission objective. All right, so we're back up a little bit. So each person will get one of these cards, and this is going to be a secret. You turn this upside down. Don't let anybody else see it. Don't let anybody else know what this is going on. And then this will be like my personal mission objective. These are the things that I have to accomplish in order to get to the point where I win or get these points, and hopefully can trigger either the end game. Because if you can get to the boss monster and defeat him, that actually triggers the end of the game, as opposed to going through 15 rounds. But so it just says, I'm sure you're familiar with the Pure One, the Avenger from the Heavens, destined to wipe the taint of mutation from humanity, and so on. But you probably haven't heard of the Blades of the Pure One. They're groups of kick-arse ladies that have shut themselves off from the world and spend every waking hour honing their minds and bodies to be his or her, if you hear the version of events, deliverers of justice. These women don't mess about, and I shouldn't read this whole thing. But so basically, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm trying to be tough, be up but humble, and don't piss Kaya, their leader, off. When you get to the cloister and speak to the Generalissimo, hopefully she'll see the lighter side of that in-joke. So I'm basically looking for this group of people. Once again, the narrative, the story, that's what makes this game so much fun. Well, there's also just the fact the game's fun, but the narrative is great. So this is our first objective here, and this is our secondary objective. So I have to explore locations that match these terrain tiles. So a question mark, which anything, a city, and then a mountain. And this one, question mark, anything, a forest, then a farmland, and then a mountain. Now I could go farmland, forest, anything. It doesn't have to be in that order, but the mountain has to be last. I have to do that last. And you can kind of, and you get the rewards, for doing that, and and also you'll notice that there is like a little narrative thing right here as well. So, and I'll talk about the narrative thing again in a little bit. Most probably in my conclusion, I'll talk about that and read some of that stuff to you. But regardless, you keep this hidden because you don't want other people to know what tiles you're looking for. You don't want them to be able to take those from you. And so you might, in this situation, like on your turn, do you want to save that farm for later, to come back to it, if you will, because, but remember, you can use any of these things. So, you have lots of different options, and then there are, several different mission objectives. Each person's is going to be unique, and it's going to be something special as far as they're concerned. And again, you're not going to know what their mission objective is. All right. So anyway, so now you're ready to play. Each person is going to pick one of these cards here, and they're going to go ahead and process that. So camp. It's pretty straightforward. Camp, you gain three recovery points. And if you're in a safe zone, you gain 4 recovery points. Recoveries are just used to get back your health, get back morale, and in some cases, you'll use it to gain back exhausted combat cards and what have you. You can also use them to get back exhausted cubes that you use up as well. You can't ever heal your morale or your health higher than their maximums. And that stands to reason, but it should be mentioned just in case, so you know that you can't just camp over and over again, boost yourself up, and then go off on an adventure. Camping is you would think that you wouldn't use it a lot, but you're going to use it a lot actually, because this waste world of your home really does take a lot out of you. All right, so foraging is pretty good. So first of all, foraging, you get to move first. Moving, you can definitely stay in your same spot. You don't have to move at all. but you can move up to 2 adjacent train tiles that are already on the board. And you can, and orthogonally, mind you, you can't move diagonally. You can also place a train tile from your hand and play it adjacent to the tile you're currently on, and then place a scavenger site token that you might have on it, and then move on to it. Or you can wander. Now, if you wander, you suffer 1 fatigue and take a random face-down train tile and play it adjacent to the tile you're currently on. When you do this, you do not draw a scavenge tile, and you can't, nor can you play one on the tile you just drawn. So if you wanted to wander, you would just grab one of these and you turn it over, see what you get, and in this case it would be a city, and so you place it on the board like so, and then you just move on to it. But you're not going to be able to put that scavenger token on it. But you'd also take fatigue. Now fatigue is interesting because fatigue can't normally be gotten back. Fatigue will happen because of taking actions like wander, or like if you choose not to eat, or you can't eat at night because you don't have any food. And other actions will cause you to gain fatigue as well. Fatigue is bad because it actually harms your morale and your health. It'll actually harm exhaust cubes that you have, things like that. And those are marked on the board. Fatigue is never definitely a good choice to take, but sometimes you'll just be forced into it. Like I said, you're out of food or whatever. All right, so then when you forage, what happens is that after you do your move, if you choose to move or whatever, if it doesn't contain either that it's a safe location or a mission accomplished token or whatever, then you're going to be able to go ahead and take certain things. So if we're in the spot with the city, we would go ahead and be able to draw a weapon, a ranged weapon, or a melee weapon, our choice. If you're in a farmland, you get a food and then 2 weapons. If you're in the forest, you get 2 food and a recovery token. Recovery tokens do the same thing as recoveries, but they recover they can be used at any time, and they are used to recover certain they are used to recover your morale or health or what have you, and they can be used at any time. You just trade them in. You don't have to take a camp action to get recovery. And then the final one, in the mountains, you can draw one of those equipment, those green ones right there, and a food. So you'll strategically try to pick the place you want to go. So we just did that. So we could draw, if that was our action, we would draw and we would get this crossbow as a ranged weapon, and so we can see it's got a range of 2, and we could place that on there, and maybe it's a little bit better than the one that we have. So it actually it has the ability that if we use a blue cube when we use it, you gain an additional hit. And notice it takes no ammo, so we could use this when we run out of bullets. So that's not a bad thing at all, right? It's a little backup weapon to have, always a good idea. All right, so now the map action. So with the map action, we talked about it a little bit briefly earlier when we compared those 2 different map actions. The map action, you get to take 2 binoculars. Now each person has in reserve, they have these extra binocular tokens. If you do that action, you just take 2 of them and add them to your pile. Keep the rest separated. So you make sure that that those are not part of your bidding pool, if you will. Or, as this one says, you can replace all the face-up train tiles on the board. You can just say, I don't like any of those, and I'm going to replace them with those. If these piles should ever run out, the ones that have been discarded, obviously, will just you'll shuffle them up and use them. Then draw 1 face-up tile and the thing next to it. Then place any number of tiles with up to 1 and up to 1 of those on each. So you then can get more of these into your hand by doing that. So I have this smiley face, and but this one has the wheel on it. And looking at this, actually that's cool. I can actually, if I could get a scavenger token on there, I could probably turn that in. But regardless, maybe I'm going to be shooting for my mission says that I need a city, which I'm on the city spot as it is, but I want a mountain. And I'm going to look here, and I don't have a mountain tile out there. That stinks. But, alright, let's take this forest. And we're going to take that forest and we're going to put it onto that spot like so. And that means we can take this and we can place it onto that over there. And then we're going to go ahead and take this gear. And we're going to keep that and we're going to hold on to it and maybe place it on the board later. You know, when we have the option to do so. So, you know, let me just go ahead and replace that tile we just took. And there's a mountain, of course. It's the one after we need. But, oh well, it doesn't matter. So, that is, you know, how you do the mapping action. You know, it's you know, pretty straightforward as far as, you know, what your process is. You're going to end up doing the map action quite a bit because of the fact that you can't always rely on like the actions with the binoculars to be able to add tiles to what you have. And also, you know, when you're looking for a certain tile of a certain type or a certain scavenger token of a certain type, you'll be using the map action as well. And you know, you're looking for things that'll either match the Recon tokens that you're looking for, or the Recon like combinations, so you can get points that way, or you know, you're just looking for, you know, the correct type of locations that you're going to need, because once you successfully explore one of these locations, you can't explore it again. So you're definitely going to be expanding out and getting more and more stuff. Couple of things about the map action. You can't, I mean, let's just say I'm in this spot, and if I had multiple tiles, I'm not going to grab those, I'll just grab some down here. You can play multiple tiles in that spot, but you can't place them at non-adjacent locations. So, like, I can't go here and there to get to that other token. I have to place them in adjacent locations, so I'd have to go like this and like that. Also, you can't, like if you did a wander like I did, you can't place a scavenger token. If you have scavenger tokens left, you can't place them on on tiles that you've already put down. You have to place them on ones that you placed. Now there are like certain like actions and equipment that will allow you to place those scavenger tokens on tiles that you've already laid down, but you know, normally that is not the case. All right, so the final thing is obviously the coolest thing, and that's going to be exploring. So when you explore, you get to resolve an encounter, and if you survive, then you move. If you survive, move, then place your marker or a safe space, and then roll the loot die. Alright, so this is where the bread and butter of the game is. This is where, as I said, the narrative of what you're doing is going to come out and you know, be part of like telling your story. So depending upon the spot that you're on, you're going to look, and I did move. I'm going to put myself back on the city because it's like one of the things that I need for my first objective. So you see this number, it's a 5. So what that tells me is that I'm going to have a combat encounter, unless I take this die and I roll a 6. Let's see what I get here. A 1. So it's going to happen. So I'm going to have a combat in that spot. Now if I rolled a 6, I would have a narrative action in that spot, and I will, like I said, I will talk about narrative actions and how they work. Probably, like, I'll do that as part of my conclusion, just because I'm going to be reading things aloud to you, and that's not really action-oriented here. So what you'll do is, depending upon the level, so right now we haven't gone to, like, second level, encounters. So we're going to turn this over, and what we have here is we have a spitter, and it is a mutant encounter. A mutant encounter is important to mention because if I take any damage during this encounter, I'm going to get a mutation, because the spitter mutated me. Now, he has 2 health, and he has 1 experience points if I defeat him. Now, this is the combat portion of the card here. This is the ranged portion that's going to happen first, and this is the melee portion. You don't have to defeat this thing. You don't have like continued combat actions against it. However, you do want to defeat it because you obviously need experience points and what have you. But you have a situation where this is his he's going to roll a blue die for his attack when it comes to ranged, and then it's going to tell me that for every target he gets is going to be 1 wound. he also has a range of 1. Now that's an important thing because, like, think of combat as two people like shooting each other. The person that has like who can shoot from this distance is going to be able to attack for a person that can shoot from this distance. So I have, you know, this this Fleming hunting rifle, and so it is, you know, and I got, if I use it, it's going to cost me a bullet, but it's got a range of 3, so it's going to work before this particular mutant. And if you'll notice here, like you have like this crossbow. If I use this, it would have a range of 2. So you know, I'd have a like, you know, we'll get to be able to shoot with the crossbow before as well. But my hunting rifle is the better weapon in this situation because it only takes 3 successes to get my 2 damage. So I'm going to use that. So what happens is that now, like, I can roll this myself, but I elect another player at the table, and they're going to roll the 1 die. Well, actually, first of all, I have to go first because, you know, that's just what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I can look in my remember I told you, like, you could go through here and you could, you know, try to find different you know, cards that you could pick that are going to help you do damage. Now, I mean, I could take like this critical hit. It's going to automatically give me 2 results, and that's going to give me 1 damage, like so. But I'm going to try something a little tricky here. So what I could do is, you know, I could pick one of these things that, like, I like, say like this hip shot or whatever. I'm going to pick that, and that's going to be the one that's going to be exhausted from the combat encounter. Alright, so now I get to add 1 randomly drawn card from this deck. And so, like, and then you know, you can fan it out or whatever. You shuffle it up, and you're going to draw 1 card from it. So let's just see what I get here. And so we have defensive shot. So now I've got 2 of these results here. And so that means that with this, I have achieved 1 point of damage. Now, at the present time, I haven't had an attack by this creature yet. So if I'm worried about taking damage and getting mutated, what I can do is I can spend one of these cubes, and different cubes will do different things, but in this case, spending one of my blue cubes will actually add a target to my total, giving me 3 total, in which case this would be 3 total. It would be equal 2 points of damage, and I would kill the mutant spitter. And so that's like a one way you could resolve that. Now, I could have, you know, drawn something where it's like a miss, which isn't going to do me any good. I could have just, you know, I could have drawn the critical hit, which, you know, obviously would have just, I wouldn't have to use my cube. But in this case, I drew that. I'm going to leave these because those are exhausted. Remember, if I do a rest or a camp action, I can restore those back. I can put my cube back over into this area. I can get this card back into my deck, and then I've taken care of the spitter. Now let's just see what would have happened. Let's just roll a die and see, like, maybe I only did the 1 point of damage to it and we roll. So in this case, if I'd rolled that, then I would look at the fact that for every one of those, he was going to be doing a damage to me. And so then I would take that, and remember, this is a mutant, so if I take damage from a mutant, I get a mutation, which, you know, never a good idea. Well, the first one, like I said, can be good, but later on, not so good. But, alright, so let's say I didn't hit him at all or whatever. I only hit him for 1 point of damage. Now we're going to do melee. So now, if you don't have a melee weapon, you are allowed to just use your fists. However, like, they're not, your fists aren't going to have any bonuses whatsoever to your ability in combat. And whereas, you know, my combat knife gives me a maneuverability and a damage, you know, to begin with. So if I'm going to use it, I got to take this cube and I got to get rid of it, just show that my knife has been used and it's getting worn down. And now we're going to have to go into the melee section. So if we look at the melee, we see here Corrosive Spit on a roll of maneuver plus maneuver. Discard 1 durability from the weapon used to combat against the spitter. And you can see there is, he's going to do 1 damage automatically, and then we're going to roll those 2 dice and see what kind of result we get. Melee combat is going to work a lot like shooting combat works as far as like setting up where we're at. So this, just bear with me. So look at this board. This is for the enemy. This is for the player. So for starters, I'm going to get a maneuverability and a damage to begin with. So I'm going to take a green cube and I'm going to put my damage at 1, like so. And then I'm going to take an orange cube and I'm going to put my maneuverability at 1 as well. And I get those because my combat knife gives me those 2 stats. Now, my enemy gets a damage to start with, but nothing else. So the other player who's going to be running the enemy that I'm facing, they're going to go ahead and they're going to place that cube right there. And the reason why you do this is because when you get to the resolution, it's going to be a lot easier if you go through that process. Now, just like we did before, I'm going to be able to go through my deck and I'm going to be able to pick one of these cards that I want to use. Now, I want to be able to, like, probably do damage to him in some way. And so I'm going to go ahead and look through, like, I could do this. It's automatically going to do damage. Remember, he's got, like, 1 hit point left, because they can end up blocking the damage. Now, you can look at these dice, because he's going to roll 2 of these, and you can take a look and see what the results are. He's got a lot of maneuverability, and he's got some damage on there. So I'm going to, like, try to want to block the damage. I'm going to do a point of damage to him, or I got that damage on that spot. So let's go ahead and take this. We're going to take defensive shot. That's the one we're going to expend. Because I did that, I'm going to get to add a block onto there. So now, once again, I get to roll, I get to shuffle through this randomly, and I'm going to pick one of these cards at random, and these will not be expended. So, all right, so here we go. Let's see. All right, so draw a card. Oh, so we got like perfect. We got a critical hit. So we're going to get 2 more on the maneuverability portion. So we're going to go ahead and go 1, 2 like that. And remember, this one is not going to be exhausted because it's the one I drew randomly. So now let's roll these 2 dice and let's see what we get for the spinner. So he gets 2 maneuverability. So we're going to go ahead and add those on there. All right, so now the resolution, and actually that's 0, so I might as well just go ahead and put them up like that. All right, so perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and resolve by looking at the different results that each spot gave it. I got 2 of those, so I should be at 3, and the 1 damage and the 1 block. And he had the 1 damage, and he got 2 maneuverability. Perfect. So we're set up, and now we can do the resolution. So the first thing, both the active player and the enemy decrease their total maneuverability by the amount that the other person has. So in my case, I've got 3 to his 2. He's going to go down to 0. I'm going to go down to 1. Then, if the enemy has any maneuverability left over, while the active player does not, the enemy must use to reduce my damage. But they're not going to do that because of the fact that I have it and they don't. I have stuff left over, so the enemy does not. So then I choose whether I'm going to use the additional rolls to reduce the enemy's damage. Well, yeah, I would, because I'm going to take that and I'm going to knock it down 1. Good. But remember, I have that block as well. So it looks like I'm going to come out of this okay. If after the previous step, either side still has any maneuverability left, they can convert 2 maneuverability into damage. So, this is one of those situations where, if I was okay with not reducing it, and I had 2 left, and maybe he had 2 hit points. Let's say my shot hadn't done any damage to it at all, and I know my block's going to take care of the damage, and I had 2 left over. I could spend that 2, and I could raise my damage by 1. So I'd be able to, because of the maneuverability I'm showing in combat, I could do more damage if that's the case. So finally, each side removes all of their block to reduce their opponent's damage by an equal amount. So I could reduce this block by 1, and I could reduce that damage by 1. And then I'd have those 2 damage left over, and if he still had, if like I said, my shot hadn't done anything, I could take that 2 damage, and I would defeat him, and get that experience point for doing so. Now remember, like, if I did take a mutation, like if if he spit on me or shot me, so I draw this, and let's see so we get Seeker Sight. Take the Seeker Sight combat card from the mutation replacement card deck and add it to your deck of combat cards, then discard this card. So, we can just go ahead and see what we got here. So we would get the Seeker Sight for that, which, is maybe not the worst thing ever. It gives me another card that has a like combating, but it isn't good for melee at all. So, good with the bad, or whatever. That was my my mutation. All right, so because I succeeded in that and I explored that, and this is part of what I need to solve for my personal like exploration or whatever, I am now allowed to go ahead and place this guy, this as part, the first step of my mission objective, and I get to go ahead and place that on that portion, and I'd immediately get 1 point for doing so. Also, because I succeeded, I am allowed to roll the loot die, in which case then I'm going to roll this, and then depending on what I rolled, like in this case I'm going to get a food, so I would take another food token and add it to my player card. Also, if it wasn't part of my mission, I have the option of putting one of these tokens on there, which shows that it is a safe space. And so, I could place that in that spot, and now it becomes a spot where, just like any other safe space I have, where I'd be able to camp there, and I don't have to use food there, and so on and so forth. I should mention that, like, the third and final part, when you get to place this, you get, that place becomes a safe space as well. So, and then, it's, so you're going to get multiple safe spaces in your location, and and those are going to be very, very useful because, like I said, not having to pay for food during the night phase is important. I should also mention that, like, when you get knocked out, meaning that either your morale or your health gets knocked down to 0, when that happens, you do get forced to go back to it. You aren't killed, this isn't a game where you were defeated. Well, I mean, technically kind of you are defeated because you're knocked out, but when you get knocked out, you get to go back to a safe space of your choice, and then if there's no safe zone currently in play, they're instead returned to their starting position. And then you suffer 1 mutation, or -1 reputation if you can't get a mutation. And then you recover 2 fatigue and gain 2 recovery points that can be used immediately. At least one of those recovery points has to be used to increase your morale or your health, depending upon which one you lost, back up to 1 so you can continue. And then you can go ahead and begin again. After everybody's done their day phase, they're going to do a night phase, which is you are going to eat food if you have it, or get fatigue, or if you're in a safe spot you don't need to do it. And then you can also spend experience points to give yourself new abilities that you'll be able to spend, and increase and level up your characters, if you will. So the only other thing I haven't really talked about, because then the game just progresses like that. You're going to go through each turn and so on and so forth. The only thing I haven't talked about is the events. Now remember, like I put my token here a little while ago? When you draw the event, you're going to have 2 possibilities. So if it is a token on that spot, then the person who's on there gets to draw 2 of these, and you notice how there's that icon right there? They get to pick which one they want to use. So during the night phase, all players not in a safe zone discard or lose 1 health. During the night phase, if players feed this turn, they must roll a d6. On a roll of 4 or more, they gain a mutation card, otherwise no effects. You get to pick which one you want to use. If they don't have that, then you have to do this. All players not in safe zone. And if you don't have a player token on there, you just draw 1, and that's the one that you'd experience. So you don't actually pick two and choose one. The events, we'll just put some sort of task or trying situation in front of the players, and having the power to pick which one and take the one that is most advantageous to you is always a good idea. All right, so one last thing I should mention the boss monsters. Like I said, I'll talk about the narrative in my final thoughts because I'll read some of that to you aloud. But boss encounters, you will draw one of these when you complete your second objective. Boss encounters, they will have a narrative encounter, which once again I'll show you how that works. And you will have, and notice how the narrative encounters have major successes, and fails. And then you will have a combat encounter as well. So each one of these is difficult in its own right, and you better be prepared. You better be prepared to and have really good equipment and have leveled up your character before you get to these, because they are going to be extremely difficult. You get to and if you defeat these, that will signify the end of the game, and then you'll total up your reputation points so you wins. Otherwise, there's no way it does that. Once you get to turn 15, the game will be over, and then you'll total reputation points at that point as well. So the biggest thing is you got to complete your missions. You get reputation points. You got to hopefully satisfy the Recon expectations of the different tiles that you're placing out and the scavenger tokens that you're placing out to get the reputation points, and then also the boss monsters and what have you to get reputation points as well. It is a weird conglomeration of both survival and a victory point game, which I'll be honest, when I played this game, I was more about just having the story and trying to succeed on my mission than I really was about winning the game, if you will. I almost felt like the actual scoring the points and whatever seemed almost tacked on for me. But whatever, that's just me. It is what it was. I could be saying that just because I lost a lot. I think I won once of the times I played this, but I just really enjoyed the whole idea of traveling around my own little separate wasteland and experiencing the world as I went through. So, but let me talk more about that in my final thoughts, and also show you some of that narrative information or narrative encounters. Alright, so there you go. You should have a fairly good idea of how Posthuman Saga works. I'll touch on all the things that I mentioned at the very end, but I did mention that I want to talk about the narrative, how that works. And so I don't have the actual book. I actually have the PDF of both the rules and all of the story. But and I didn't want to read off a lot of these, because a lot of this game is to deal with exploration and discovering certain things. And because each one of these encounter cards has a story element to it, I think it's pretty cool that you aren't always going to encounter that, due to the fact that more often than not, it seems to me that I was always running into having to fight the thing without not getting to read the story. So if you're worried about the fact that you're going to be using up the stories and you're going to be retreading old information, kind of like when if this is not really a parallel, but when Eldritch Horror first came out and you were getting the same encounters over and over again until you got expansions that actually increase the number of cards, you don't really have to worry about that. I've played this several times, and I haven't had a repeat situation, mostly because of the fact that you're not guaranteed to have the narrative, if you will. Even though you might see that you get the same card that has a number that maybe you encountered, the fact of the matter is you might just be fighting the thing on the card. You're not really going to get to that narrative aspect, if you will. So you don't have to worry about, I know what to do in this situation. And even if you do know what to do in this situation, there's no guarantee that you're going to do it right. So with the shock, you realize that the building you ventured into was a genetics lab, one of the many shady, barely regulated institutions that plan... Oh, I should mention that you pick somebody else to read this to you, so you don't have an idea of what you're trying to do. So just keep that in mind. So you can't, I don't want to do that, that kind of thing. Anyway, so you planted the seeds of this whole mess to begin with. With another shock, you realize you're not alone. You come face to face with a woman. Clear signs of mutation on her face, a wad of notes in one hand and a vial in the other. Please, she says, we need this material if our kind is to survive. Do you A, let her take the research material, or B, mow her down. Take a speed challenge and success on a 3. So, like A, so let's say, so you tell a person, well, which one do you want to do? And so then they'll go like, oh, well, I'm going to say A. All right, so now here's how this works. So if A, like I would say, okay, here it says, you lower your weapon for a second, and that's all the time she needs. She throws the vial in her hand at you, and at such close range, you have no chance of dodging. The mutagen eats into your skin and seeps into your pores. By the time you recover yourself, the woman is long gone. +2 experience points, +1 mutation. So, oh, I got a mutation, which, good, bad, who knows. So that's one option. Now, the other one is B, like mow her down. So you strike her down and the vial shatters on the floor. As you try to leave the building, though, you realize that she was not alone. Bullets thud into the walls around you, and you see a line of heavily armed Nova mutants approaching. You make a run for it. Now, this is where you're going to take your speed challenge. And so, with the speed challenge, what happens is that, like, I can tell you that, like, there is a good success, and there is a kind of success, and then there are, like, 2, like, bad successes. So, but I'm reading that, and I don't know. So, I'll just read these to you. So, if you get 3 or more, you dodge the rubble, avoiding the hail of bullets with only a few cuts and grazes to show for it, and manage to shake the mutants off your tail, +2 experience points. That's if you get 3 or more successes. And I'll show you how successes work here in just a moment. And then 0 through 2, you dodge the roll just as you think you've managed to avoid the hail of bullets. You get hit in the shin. You still manage to crawl to safety. -1 health. If you, like, have 1 botch, which I'll explain here in just a moment, as you run, shrapnel tears through your skin, -1 health, and then 2 or more botches, you feel the burning sting of lead shot embedding itself in your back, -1 health. So you notice that, like, the 3 that are below the successes are all -1 health. Now, that isn't always going to be the same thing for all these narratives. But I'm telling you, as the person that's going to be picking and trying to defeat the encounter, that those are the options of what can happen, and they're going to have to decide. Now, okay, so in this this bag here, my trusty Crown Royal bag, there are these tokens, and these tokens are going to have these different symbols on them, and players can draw up to 5 of these tokens from the bag, trying to get successes. So what they'll do is, like, they might draw something like this, and this is just a miss, so that isn't going to help them. I'm just going to kind of rattle around here. I'm going to try to see if I can get a success here. And so, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to, get to the success total that it tells you to get. So, like, in this case, it is 3. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to grab a couple so I can show you what these things do. So, some of these will have, if you, like, it's a success, but only if your stat as your character, and it might not be able to say, it says 3+ on it. And so if you have a 3, and then, like, in this case, my trusty scout has 3, that would be, like, a success. And so I would look at that, and I would say, and notice if it isn't, it's considered to be a miss. Now, some of these will say it's a success if it's a 3 or above, but if not, it's a botch. So, that's no good. Some of these will say if it's a 5 or above, it's a success, which, the only stat on my my scout that's a 5 is his shooting, and I'm not testing shooting. That's good. Some of these will just be a straight botch, which is never good. And once you can stop drawing, whenever you want to, as far as with the tokens are concerned. But once you get to 5, you have to stop. Now, some of these will just be successes. There's, and you want to be able to get these. You just succeed. It's just a flat-out success with those, and you don't have to worry about having a certain stat. So that is a random draw out of the bag. You're going to pick those out, and you're going to try to, like, succeed at those, like, narrations. Now, the narratives I thought were really, really well written. I thought they evoked a lot of the same mystery and of the wasteland, if you will. And because of the fact that, like, just in my opinion, that, like, it seems like most of the spots that I was placing down, like this one here, like, it even says, like, it's a 6 or above. So, like, you can't roll higher than a 6, so you'll be fighting in that one. So the narratives were, like, there's lots of games that have narration in them. that are like it's the main part of the game, like Tales from Arabian Nights, comes to mind, and that's what the game is about. But in this case, the narrative it just kind of it was one of those things where it spiced it up. It happened just enough for it to be interesting without it getting repetitive, if that makes sense. Which I think it was perfect for the game. All right, so there you go. That's the narration, and that's how those work. Now, I want to talk about the game itself. Now, when I heard about this game, I thought for sure it was going to be like a thematic, like Arkham Horror type thing. And a case could be made that it is kind of like that. It's dudes on a map, it's people moving around or whatever. But this is a game that is thoroughly grabbing on to its Euro strategy mechanisms, and it's holding on to it. Now, this is probably one of the most thematic Euros I've ever played, ever. And it is thematic from top down. It is, like a lot of times in these videos I say things like, oh, this game could have been anything. It could have been about, spaceships, or it could have been about trains, or it could have been about the jungle, or, whatever. And I guess technically you could really monkey with this game and change everything, and you could turn it into a thematic experience that's, in a different setting. But this is, like, it drips with the theme. And it tells me a story. I can picture my guy walking through the wastelands, traveling to all these different locations, these weird locales, desperately searching, for his quest, his mission, his goal of the whole situation. And it tells me that story. It intersperses with like movie-esque action, fighting mutants and other individuals that you're going to be running into. It has those narrative stories that I just shared with you there. And there is like a narration right at the beginning, like the beginning story. It tells everybody exactly what they're doing, what they have. There's the narration that you have on your mission objective that you get. So, you are feeling like you're in that weird Mad Max world or whatever you want to call it. And you are experiencing it as you tread through this world. Now, I'm a big fan of theme in games. I actually just had a conversation with somebody whose opinion on games I respect a great deal, and they expressed to me that I would just rather play an abstract Euro than anything else. Like, just no theme whatsoever, just strip it down, give me the mechanisms, and I'd love to play that. And I was like, bleh. And if you've watched my channel over the last 10 years or so, you know that I'm like a big theme person. Give me a story. Give me something I can sink my teeth into and enjoy. Give me, and I really like how these people don't have names. Like, this is just the scout, right? So I could give this dude any name. This could be, Eli Smith or whatever, and I can come up with a story for Eli, and I can tell like his epic adventure, if you will. So I like that. And so it has the story where it needs it, and it has it where it isn't. Ultimately, like, this was one of those games. I have a game group that is hugely into, and I don't like saying thematic, but I don't really like Ameritrash either, but what type of games, and they are really, really big into those. But this game, they kept on asking to play it over and over again, mostly because of the fact that it has, like, this bidding mechanism. It has a hand, like a collection of cards, like card, like not drafting, but I'm trying to think of the word here. You have to maintain your combat card deck, and you have to know when to use up those cards. You know when to save them, keep them up. You have to know when you have to camp. You have to know when to push your luck on your resources and go for an extra tile. You need to have a good idea of like where you are at in relation to the other players as far as your success, and knowing how you have to keep track of them. I already stated that, like, when I played this, I ended up not really caring if I won or lost. And that usually for me is something that tells me this game is really, really good. It means that I enjoyed the journey of the game. And like at the very end when you're totaling up your points, it's almost like an afterthought. For me, after I got done playing, and like I said, I did win, I think, once. But like, for me, it was more like I was able to look at the world that I created on the board. I was able to look at the different tiles that I placed, and I was able to, like, kind of retrace my steps. I could see the mission objective markers that I had placed in my different spots, and, oh, you know, that's where I did battle with that mutant. Oh, you know, that's where I fought the end boss. You know, things like that, where I was able to, like, and that told the story of my particular character. And the really cool thing is that each other person had their own movie going on at the exact same time, and each person had their own separate story, and you actually get to experience all of them, which is cool. You get to, like, you know, cheer on their failures and you get to boo their successes, you know, and you get to concentrate on your own while, you know, the players are doing the exact same thing, you know, like hoping you fail, and fail spectacularly, because if you fail, then that tells that funny story of, like, that sad sack loser, you know, wandering the wastes, if you will, which ended up being me in one game, very, very much so. But just, as I said, it's got a lot going on, but once you play it, once you actually dive into it, once you actually experience it, the mechanisms do fall away. They make sense. They make narrative sense. They you know, feel like they should be there. And when you have rules and mechanisms that just, like, evoke and play with the theme that the game has, it makes the game, like, and learning the game, like, second nature and a heck of a lot of fun. Ultimately, this game's awesome. I can't say enough positive things about it. It's one of those things where it's going to keep coming back to the table. It's going to satisfy the Euro crowd, the strategy crowd that I play with. It's going to satisfy the thematic crowd that I play with, and it's going to be this wonderful tweener game that I think everybody's going to enjoy. And, you know, it's just a heck of a lot of fun. So there you go. If you have any questions about Posthuman Saga, please ask me. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. If you're wondering about my voice being a little weird, I've been dealing with a cold for about a week, so I've been kind of hacking it up. But I appreciate you bearing with me as I got through this. And until next time, I am the Undead Viking, telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.